Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing? All right. My name is Mike Kanan, and I'm the COO of Stranger's Guide. We're an award-winning publication that commissions stories from local writers and photographers to build authentic portraits of place from Scandinavia and Tehran to Colombia and Lagos. Learn more about what we do at strangersguide.com or connect with me after this session. I'm very excited to introduce today's panel. Kishi Bashi is the pseudonym of singer, multi-instrumentalist, and songwriter Kaoru Ishibashi. Ishibashi has recorded and toured internationally as a violinist and with diverse artists such as Regina Spektor, Sondre Lerche, and of Montreal. His latest album, Omoiyari, was released in 2019. He has co-directed a feature-length documentary of the same name about minority identity and the incarceration of Japanese Americans in World War II, which is premiering this evening at South by Southwest, time 5:40 at the Zach Theater. Dino Ray Ramos is an award-winning journalist and podcast host. He launched the alternative Hollywood trade Diaspora, spotlighting underrepresented voices in entertainment media. Prior to that, he served as an editor at Deadline, where he reported on inclusion, diversity, and representation in film and television. Please join me in welcoming everybody to the stage.
We have a Hello, everyone. We have a guitar.
This is a prop.
Isn't that exciting?
It's just a prop. Actually.
It's just a prop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's about music.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us on this, I was going to say Sunday morning. It's Monday, though, right? Okay, well, it's Monday, and we are here. We're alive. We're together. It's great. And I'm excited to have this conversation with Kay here. And I got a chance to watch Omoiyari before the premiere tonight. And if y'all watch it tonight, or go watch it tonight when it premieres at the Zach Theater at 5:40, because it is quite a touching film, and bring tissues because you will cry. In a good way, of course. But I just want to start by thanking Kay for being here. Thank you, Kay.
Yeah, thank you, Dino. The pleasure is mine.
Yeah, so, you know, I want to start with just asking you about this film and how long it lived in your head before you actually started to kind of make it.
I mean, initially, you know, I was commissioned to write this symphony with visuals, and so that was something I wanted to do. And then my friend, my co-director, Justin Taylor Smith, I proposed this idea to him, and then, you know, we had a camera out there, and then it's kind of documenting my own growth, and realized that there's something here, maybe a short film, and then 4 years later, we have a feature-length documentary.
Yeah. Yeah, this is your first time even doing anything like this, behind the camera and like directing.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, yeah. How was that journey? Like, because like for one, you're in front of the camera, and two, you're dictating your own story and collaborating with another director and diving into this world of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's been absolutely educational, you know, because when I started, I didn't know how to interview people. I barely could articulate what I was feeling, and then I think with the as I progressed through this movie and started learning the 4 years of creating this movie, I started to be able to figure out how to articulate my feelings on this film, you know, through this film, and then through my concerts, and then just like how I have conversations with people. So I've changed a lot, and so this movie kind of documents that too.
So where did you even just start with this film? Like, what was day one like, and like, where do you begin? Because there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, so it started with actually a trip with my friend who's in the movie, Erin Aoyama, and it was a group of grad students that were doing a tour of the West Coast, and we started in Arizona, Poston, where one of the camps were, and it was basically a way to kind of immerse yourself in the locations, as well as visit museums and have conversations, like daily, multiple conversations, like all the time about this, and how to unpack it and how to process that kind of, you know, the information and our experiences. And I think that 2 weeks of just intensive like workshopping was really the key to like helping me to start growing, I think. And we filmed that too. That's in the movie.
I mean, there's a lot that is included in the film, you know, and when you started making the film, did you start off thinking, oh, it's going to be this way, but as you were making it, it evolved into something totally different? Like, how was that journey? Because I would imagine, especially with documentaries, kind of the narrative changes as you kind of find new things out.
Yeah, I mean, it started as just an exploration of the history of Japanese American incarceration, and then tangentially, I was like, oh, well, this is really about oppression in general and assimilation, you know. So I felt it unfair to start to just tell the Asian American story. So there's a lot of tangential things like, you know, indigenous stories and also, you know, the African American story, because I live in Georgia, you know. So it's kind of like this this encompassing thing that we went in every direction. Even went to Japan to talk about, you know, gender inequality, and then went to Okinawa where my mom lives to talk about prejudice against Okinawans from the mainland Japanese, you know. And these are the segments that existed. We still have like that never made the film.
Yeah,
because we had to focus on a story that could fit into 90 minutes, you know.
That is just so funny. The other night, I was talking to one of my friends who's from Okinawa, and she was schooling us on kind of the I guess you say racism against Okinawans, or
yeah, it's an indigenous assimilation story, you know, because my mom's from Okinawa.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like she talks about she had a scarlet letter of like, you can't, if you speak the, you know, Uchinawa-go, which is a traditional Okinawan speak, you would be punished and humiliated, you know. And so it's very similar to the American, like, you know, boarding school story, where it's just like, you have to speak Japanese in order to survive. And they're kind of used as also like cannon fodder in the Battle of Okinawa, which is the same time as, you know, in the incarceration.
That's just so wild that for oops.
Somebody
that's okay.
Their phone. I just took a picture of it.
It's casual. We're just cash. It's a Monday morning. We're still recovering.
I don't even know how to turn it off.
Oh, you don't know? It's okay. You want to take the call?
Spam. It's probably spam.
It's spam. There is someone calling you about your insurance provider.
It might be about the extended warranty on my
I have a great deal for you.
Yeah, I know, right?
But and also, I do want to go into that, the whole identity of it all. I think one of the things right now, especially in Hollywood and film and TV, which I cover a lot, and just in culture and in news and headlines, is Asian American and just Asian identity. I'll just say this about me and how I connected with your story is that I think a lot of Asian Americans tend to, well, I know a lot of Asian Americans who tend to kind of detach from their Asianness or their identity, but it's not necessarily on purpose. It's like, for me, at least, I just was like, oh, my dad was a really huge community leader in the Filipino community. And I just was like, as a rebellious teenager, I was just like, oh, I don't want to do that, you know. And also, we're taught a lot that kind of, you know, close proximity to whiteness means greatness kind of thing. And we're all...
Yeah, it's power.
Yeah.
And then access.
Yeah, and then we were billed as the model minority, and then... There's a lot there, but I didn't want to say I necessarily detached from my Filipino-ness or my Asian-ness, but when I went to college, that's when I started to realize, oh, I'm different, or oh, I could use my platform, or I have something to say, you know. I was in college and I thought I could change the world. I think a lot of us go into college thinking, oh my God, I'm so idealistic and I know everything. But I felt that in your story about kind of this kind of identity, and can you talk about your identity journey as?
I think just like you, I think you know, when I was growing up, I was an East Coast Japanese American, which is very isolated. It's a very isolated thing to be, because I didn't have any Japanese Americans like around me, and so I pretty much there's some Filipino kids and some Chinese kids, but like I pretty much ignored that I was Asian because it was almost no point, you know, and in order to survive like high school, like a public high school, you know, and so. I think for a long time I just ignored the fact that I was Asian, but I did. But luckily, you know, I come from, you know, well, I was gonna say, luckily I'm Japanese American, which is like, right now it's like it's not something to be feared, you know. But back in the 80s, you know, there's like Japan bashing and all these kind of things I remember. But I still held on to my culture. I read manga and like watched anime, and you know, my mom was really adamant about speaking Japanese and learning Japanese and doing that kind of thing. So, you know, I kind of thank my mom for a lot of that. But I think, even today, like it's weird for me. Another thing I was talking about with some friends was that maybe I've also felt kind of special as a only Asian person amongst a sea of white people.
Yeah.
So that was like my identity a little bit. And so when I was in that Asian filmmakers group,
Yeah,
pan-
there was an
party,
event with the Asian filmmakers, and
Yeah.
Kay was there. Yeah.
and so I felt a little uncomfortable because I always feel uncomfortable in a group of a lot of Asians because I think it takes my uniqueness. They're taking it like away.
You're just like, I'm not special anymore.
Oh, that guy with the haircut that's kind of like mine is taking away. Like.
No, but I get that because I think when, for some reason, I get that feeling that you had when you go into a room with a bunch of other Asian faces. I think, especially of a certain generation, at least. I mean, and I guess that's coded language for being old.
Yeah.
Where. I mean, I remember when I was first in college and I went to kind of the Filipino Student Association meeting, and I was just like, this is weird. And right, it's like, because I grew up in Texas and I had a lot of white friends and I was the only like you, but so to be around all these Asians was like uncomfortable but comfortable. Does that even make any sense?
It's exactly how I felt. It's like it's uncomfortable because either you're sticking out as a group of those people, or that they're sucking away your specialness, your uniqueness.
But I think right now, like especially with kind of our community, what's going on with Asian hate and this kind of surge of Asian filmmakers like yourself, and like from the indie world to all the way to Turning Red for Disney and all that, Asian representation. I think there's a change, and do you feel like you're a part of that since with this film? Like what do you think you're adding to the conversation?
I think right now I'm really lucky to be in a time where this is comfortable to talk about. Because like 10 years ago, probably would not have been comfortable or would have fallen upon deaf ears. Same with like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter didn't start with George Floyd. It started with like in Ferguson.
Yeah.
Like 10 years, a dozen years ago before that. And it's been it's only because of the larger white culture, the majority of people have started to acknowledge this kind of oppression, systemic oppression that exists, that now they're allowing marginalized voices to speak and to be elevated. And so I think that the climate now is great. It's like we're talking about it enough, like white people are like okay with it. And then
you're Asian, you're all right. But that kind of
But also like, just understanding that diversity is like is a beautiful thing. And it's also the future, and it's like it's something that people just have to accept if it scares you,
And I also just think there are a lot of, especially in the Asian community, where there are some people who they're not necessarily like out there, wearing their advocacy on their sleeve, but they recognize it, but they're just not hitting the ground, I guess. Or I think everyone has their own journey when it comes to identity. Oh, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I mean, one of the things that makes me feel comfortable is like if you see companies backing it, or like you see it in like a Super Bowl ad or something, then it means that the majority of people are actually starting to accept that kind of thing. And to me, that's like empowering because, companies don't necessarily do things to be ethical.
Yeah.
They do it because they want to sell. They want to sell shit. So it's like if the majority of people think that this is the way that we should be behaving with our attitudes, I think that this is a good thing, that we're in a very dynamic time right now.
When was the first time you felt yourself seen in media, whether it be film, TV, even music? It doesn't even have to be an Asian person. It could, like when did you feel, really seen?
Okay, so you asked me this question before.
Yeah, I was prepping you in the background.
You should tell them. Can you tell them what you told me before? How the first time you felt seen?
Yes. Okay, so you want to kill time. Okay, no. So.
No. I don't know. I don't have an answer, so I want to like start with.
Okay, yeah. So we were like at the Asian Pacific Film Experience the other day. Ki Hoi Kwan was there for Everything Everywhere All at Once with Jonathan Wong, who's a producer of that film. And does everyone know who Ki Hoi Kwan is? Yeah. So if you've watched The Goonies, if you watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, Data and Short Round. So he was this like kind of iconic character, and that was kind of the first time I felt seen because he was Asian for one, but also he wasn't like really marginalized in the movies. Like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, I felt like he was Harrison Ford's equal or Indiana Jones's equal. Like they were partners.
He was likable.
Yeah, and he was like, and he I mean, like he had the accent. Yeah, that's fine, but they weren't like. He wasn't a caricature, I don't think.
Is that a fake accent that he had?
No, it's because like
that's how he actually.
You heard him. He kind of sounds the same today. It's kind of wild. But
Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Short Round.
I think it may have been he probably his accent was heavier then than it is now, or maybe they told him to make it heavier. Who knows what they did back then? Because you know the '80s were wild when it comes to film and racism.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that's when I first saw it. And when I when at the event, and I openly admitted my love for him and how how like he kind of just changed my life. That was a big moment. And he's in this film now. It's 20 years later, and he said the most beautiful thing during the panel. He said, "Yeah, I know I paved the way for a lot of Asians and Asian Americans in Hollywood, but they're now paving the way for me to go back." And I was just like, "Oh, those are bars." But yeah,
Bars.
So yeah, okay. What about you?
Well, I mean, I guess like, yeah, like nerdy, geeky Asian kids. I don't know if I like related. Well, I was totally one.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if I liked that because being a nerd and a geek in the '80s was not necessarily the coolest thing.
Now it's cool. Like everyone's
now
like
it's cool.
nerd.
Yeah, because you become like a tech millionaire.
Yes.
You know, so that's
because now
actually
nerd
quite
equals
sexy.
money.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And money is quite sexy. So, but I don't know. I think like the emasculated Asian male. It's kind of like it was always like disappointing to me. It's you're either like a kung fu, warrior of some kind, or ninja maybe, or ninja warrior of some kind. In between, but. It wasn't until like later that I really thought that Asians were like, you know, because as like an Asian, like a geeky Asian guy in the '80s, I never felt like really like attractive necessarily because that's the portrayal of like geeks and nerds.
Yeah, it was kind of like Hollywood was reflecting your insecurities on you.
Yeah. So, but that could also just be all geeks and nerds in the '80s.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But also, that was the time then, right? It was just like the long duck dongs of it all, which was horrible, and that's what. Yeah.
But Long Duck Dong got laid in the movie, so right. So.
Well, see, yeah, you know what?
Didn't he get laid with the German?
Yeah. Was it Joan Cusack? Right. Movie buffs out there. I think it was Joan.
Long
Cusack.
Duck. You're talking about 16 Candles.
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't he?
But yeah, he did.
So like.
But he was still kind of a
a caricature. Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
We should discuss this.
That's real. That's a really good way to look at it, though. It's like all glass half full. He got laid. That kind of thing.
I mean, for a pimply adolescent Asian kid, yeah. That
was
a success, I would think. You know.
And well, he was like the ultimate stereotype. But yeah, I think we should start looking at it that way now to kind of reclaim Long Duck Dong.
Did Data eventually get?
Data was just smart and like he had like failed inventions, which was unfortunate. But a lot of them saved his life.
Yeah, but no romantic. That's what I mean. Like Asian men or Asian boys and romantic. Like
back in the day, yeah.
I don't, I never
but you're right about Long Duck Dong though. Even though I'm still on that.
Yeah, he's like hubba hubba.
Yeah, and he was like he wasn't desexualized, right? He was like a horny little teen.
Yeah, totally. As we were all.
Except he was just like racist. Like it was racist, like portrayed by a racist. But anyways, sorry, John Hughes, R.I.P. So I think when you were doing this film, going back to your film, was there something? What surprised you the most while on this journey, or if there were a couple things?
Well, I mean, at first, we're talking about Asian. Like the oppression of, injustice of Asian Americans, against Asian Americans, throughout history. But then, honestly, it's like I started to realize, Asian people have this strange East Asian people, like Japanese or like affluent. They are actually quite affluent. We have we're very entrenched in the academic system, and there's a lot of wealth. And I think like what I realized is what surprised me is that the Asian to be Asian is not a monolithic experience, you know, and racism is not something that's a top-down, very simple thing. It's extremely complicated, and it's connected to wealth and access, you know.
That's like a whole other conversation when it comes to the Asian identity. Is like, I've been saying this throughout the festival. Like, I've been on a couple panels about, like, basically kind of the browner Asian you are, the less recognition you get. There's a whole colorism thing, and also access. Because also, I think that it's a reflection of media. Is like, a lot of people, when they say Asian, they automatically think Japanese, Korean, Chinese, sometimes Vietnamese, but
and maybe Indian.
And then maybe Indian,
Pakistani or something.
Filipino, Cambodian, Lao. I think I'm still discovering that, and the kind of, you know, media. Again, this is why, you know, the whole thing about representation matters. I know that's a hashtag that is constantly thrown around, but it's kind of true. It does matter, and, you know, a lot of brown Asians don't see themselves, and there's a whole thing within the Asian Hollywood community, which we'll get into at another panel. But
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, one thing, didn't Hollywood, like, didn't the Oscars, like, mandatory, like, they made it mandatory for your production to have some kind of representation? Recently, a couple years ago?
Yes, I think there was some sort of initiative that they launched, which won't go into effect till like 2023 or something like that.
Okay. So that's the whole thing. It's like you have to, like, actively put, you know, representation isn't just about acknowledging the problem. It's about, like, hiring and, like, including them into your narratives and your production, and behind the scenes of production and, like, everything. And I think, like, Hollywood has always been kind of slow.
Yeah, I think there's a whole, like, the argument between visibility and representation. There's one, you know, when it comes to visibility, I think Hollywood's good at checking boxes, and that's it. And then when it comes to representation, which is, like, kind of all-encompassing throughout the whole cycle of a film or media or whatever, that's a whole other thing that they're trying to work on.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, like, Obama would be the visibility aspect of African-American representation in government, but clearly it's not. You know, he's like an outlier.
Yes.
But a lot of white people would be like, oh, look, racism's over.
Yeah.
We're in a post-racist state. What are you guys complaining about? You know, and it's clearly not true. You know.
Well, yeah, it is interesting because going back to, there was a review of that movie Turning Red that was like.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if has anyone seen Turning Red yet. It's on Disney Plus. I don't work for Disney. I just watched it. But it's about a young girl and her mom. It's just a very. I think it's a very mother-daughter story, but it's also family and generational trauma, which is hot right now, guys. If you're generational trauma is hot.
Yeah.
And Kanto.
Mental health.
Mental health.
So hot right now.
Mental health is so hot right now.
Sorry.
But no, it's like there was a reviewer. You could easily find this on the Twitters, where the kids go these days. And he said this movie is for a very narrow audience that I'm not a part of. I heard about that. Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, this movie's exhausting." And I was just like, "That's coded language for, oh, this isn't for white males." It's like, but
it's exhausting to his white identity.
Yeah. Because it wasn't made for him. But then, like, we turn the tables on that, and it's just like, well, we've been fed white male narratives all our life. We empathize with them. Yeah. We have been fed these narratives, and, like, that's how we lived our lives. It's like, oh, can you just give us this one movie? It's like, I mean, I loved, like, Turning Red was fine by me, but I was like, this is very much, I know my sister and my mom will really connect with this more than but I still liked it. And it doesn't mean, I didn't call it a narrow audience. That was just coded language for, this is for an Asian female audience.
That's like something an executive would say, you know.
Exactly.
A critic.
Are there any executives? Like, can we speak freely? Okay. No, but yeah, it's a shame because things like that still happen, and when that stuff happens, it gets problematic. Like, also in the beginning of the Batman, if y'all have seen it, I did a tweet on it, and I'm still getting hate tweets. In the first 10 minutes of the Batman, a gang of thugs or a gang, whatever, are they go and attack an Asian man on the subway. And it was triggering for me because of the Asian hate, you know. And I'm like, oh, I questioned myself. So, oh, what if this was a choice? Did they film this before the surge of Asian hate, or what was this commentary? And then immediately people were saying I'm stupid. They were like calling me slurs and stuff on Twitter, because Twitter's a wonderful place to voice your opinions.
If you love the Wild West, you'll love Twitter.
Yeah. So it's like it's things like that.
Wait, so why did they have that scene in there?
I don't know, but like Batman ended up rescuing the Asian dude. Yeah. So yay.
Which I haven't seen it. Who's Batman?
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson. That one. Okay. Okay. Sweet.
That one.
He's got so many iterations. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
But like Asian, like violence against Asians, like men, like it's painful to see. So I can only imagine, like, you know, when there's painful movies about slavery or African American violence, you know, that's got to be awful. It's like reliving trauma, you know.
Yeah, and you don't need to see that. Like, I think it's just, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's more like we don't need to tell them that they should watch it.
Yeah.
Or tell us that we should appreciate like violence against it. Same with like sexual violence against women, like portrayed in film. You know, it's like it's awful to like see that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, speaking to the Asian hate of it all, when you were making this film, was that happening, or like, because you said you were working on this for 4 years, you said, so like when did the Asian hate?
Well, I didn't personally feel it too much because I was in a small town. Mm-hmm. Like there's in Athens, Georgia, which is about an hour from Atlanta, where there was the murders, you know, which is awful, you know, and kind of like.
So was that happening while you were editing, or like?
No, it was just happening when I was living there.
Okay,
yeah. So
no, in regards to the movie, were you still working on the movie?
Yeah. We're still in post.
Okay.
You know, and we're like, should we include this, or like, what should we say about this? And I always felt uncomfortable because I'm a male, and I'm not like an elderly person or like a female, and that's who seem to be attacked the most, which is awful. It's just disgusting, you know. And so it's something that I couldn't personally like relate to. But the idea that to include Asian hate in our film, and we have like a little clip about it, you know, like a news clip, because it is about like systemic oppression, or like I guess probably like. I don't know. It's just violence.
Yeah, just Asian hate.
It's just Asian hate.
Period. So. And how has like the movie, and even through the surge of Asian hate crimes, how has that impacted your identity, one, and then kind of how you infuse your identity into your art? Yeah,
I mean, I'm personally like not that insecure right now, because I have a touring career, and I play music for a living, which is great, you know, and so. But that's not the same for a lot of like young Asian men, you know, growing up. They're probably very insecure still, you know, and I get a lot of that when people come talk to me like after shows. But, sorry, what was the question? No, I'm clearly not prepared for Asian hate.
No,
conversation.
It's fine. It's fine. We're all comfortable. It was how the Asian hate crimes and making this movie now, and how has it inform how you move with your identity and your art as you move forward in your career? Yeah, I mean, I realize that I'm a little bit more. I'm very confident with who I am, but I know there's a lot of people who aren't, and that's something I realize that, you know, this is our movie is for them. You know, it's about me, but you know, this is like about building that confidence with your own identity, so that you don't have to feel so insecure all the time. You know, in this changing society. I mean, you haven't watched this with an audience yet, like a full. That will be tonight.
Yeah, I have not watched.
Oh, you're not gonna watch it?
No, I'm gonna watch it. No, it's gonna be great. I'm so excited. It's like.
Are you? I guess going. Did you, like, again, going to more Asian identity stuff?
Sure.
Did you ever feel the need to feel more Asian, or be more Asian, or did people give you guilt trips? I mean, I know I've gotten that a lot during my identity crisis.
Guilt trips. Wait, what kind of guilt trip?
Like you should be more involved in your community, or like, well, I know I don't get I get a lot of shit for not speaking fluent Tagalog or whatever, but you speak fluent Japanese, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, sometimes like on Instagram, you know, people message me. They're like, "Oh, can you please post this?" You know, and then like, you know,
No, those are just opportunists. Leave them.
well, it's something that's I do feel guilty about not posting because it's like this is really angry.
And are they like they're Asians?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, like activists.
Okay,
you know?
okay.
And then I feel guilty about not posting it because it's just like it's kind of angry and like, you know, something that's I don't feel like doing at the time, you know. But so I think I've always felt like guilty that I don't really speak up that much. You know, I'm not on the front lines. You know, I've always been in the back and kind of, you know, almost complacent probably, you know, until recently where I'm just like, people are actually listening to what I have to say and they care. And people are coming, America's coming to their own, like my listeners are, after like Trump got into office, you know, a lot of them were very progressive and they were really distraught. Yeah. And so it's like, I found that it was up to me to like kind of heal them since they like listen to my music all the time, you know. So that's when I started making this movie and feeling it's important to kind of give this encouragement that despite all this like negativity and you feel like the world might be falling backwards, you know, we're still we have this great potential to be, you know, these amazing best versions of ourselves. And so I think that's where I started to find like where I started to focus my music and my output. Yeah.
And I think that there's this intersection of art. What I think sometimes art is advocacy, or just you kind of taking up the space that you take up is a form of activism.
I think so. I mean, like if it's didactic and you have to like teach a lesson with everything, then I think the art it's a balance between teaching and like being free and creating whatever you want. Yeah. And I think I've struggled with that with this film, with my latest album, because before that I would just make music about whatever I wanted. Yeah. That's very freeing. That's like the pure artistic expression. But to teach a lesson within something, you know, is
it's kind of like trying to force like a shoehorn like a moral of your story or something.
Yeah,
right?
it's hard.
Yeah,
because I think the art could suffer if you concentrate too much on the message.
Cool. I do want to bring up another person.
Oh yeah.
To the stage, and I don't know if they're ready. Oh, okay, here she is.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Aoyama.
Aaron
Aoyama.
Aoyama.
I told them that was the correct pronunciation.
Like, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. Do you have a bow on your hair?
I do. No, it's in mine.
So let's hear it for Aaron's bow.
Thank you for the bow.
Oh.
So Aaron, you're featured in the film, correct? Do you want to talk about your identity journey?
Where to begin?
No,
yes.
So wait, how did you get involved in the film? Let's just talk about that.
Yes. So I haven't seen the film yet. So allegedly I'm in it, but
allegedly
definitely in it.
I heard you talking earlier about the road trip. So that's when I first met Kay in August of 2017. I was about to start grad school. Kay, this musician that some of us had heard of, joined our road trip, and that was sort of the beginning for me of really diving into my own family history. My grandmother and her brother and parents were incarcerated during World War II, and I was, you know, wanting to understand what that meant. As someone who's a historian and loves studying history, I never learned about these stories. My grandmother never talked about it, never saw words like Heart Mountain or Manzanar in my history textbook. So I think as Kay was sort of starting his journey into making this film and learning about his own identity, it's been a sort of fun parallel. Now I'm 5 years into a PhD program, still doing it, but being able to see the different ways that these histories can be shared and told through music, through film, through storytelling has been really meaningful.
Yeah, I also want to mention, like, there's scenes where you're playing on land where the camps were, or there's still buildings up, right? Was that kind of like a last? That seemed like that was very chilling, and there's something very poetic about it. I know I'm being very kumbaya, but it's like, but also it's emotional. Did you get emotional? Because I did. Like just seeing you play on these this kind of scorched earth and like what happened on those grounds.
Yeah, I mean, like visually, you know, just being there was it was very spiritual at times. Sometimes it was just really pleasant, which was really difficult. It's difficult, you know, because it's like you're a human being and you can't be distraught all the time, you know. So we had some wonderful times, and we also had some very meditative, transformative times where we're imagining what had happened.
Which is part of the history too, right? Some of what we talk about is that in these camps, which were prisons, which were horrible places for a lot of reasons, there were also jazz bands that formed. There were dances, there was joy in the midst of it. So some of having Kay play music there was sort of bringing that sound back, bringing history alive through sound. And I think of, I don't know if this made the movie or not, but they're playing in the jail at Tule Lake, which was sort of a particularly horrible segregation center where there was a jail within the camp that was a prison. And Kay and some other musicians we were with played Don't Fence Me In, which was, you know, one of the songs that if you meet any older Japanese Americans now, they talk about that song, they can still sing that song. And so I remember like 10 grad students filming Kay playing this song in the midst of this prison that's crumbling, and the emotions of sort of like, wow, this is really ironic, this is really beautiful, this is really sad, like what would this mean, what will this mean for people to see this or hear this? It's powerful.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't make the movie.
Well, now you know, unseen footage.
Well,
It was a very powerful movie.
Yeah, that could be like on the Instagram account, like, oh, look, cut scene. I think, but yeah.
No, it was very visceral. I mean, this is the whole part of it is like as coming back as contemporary people, especially like, you know, there's a certain narrative that we approached it. You know, this is the story of the Japanese Americans, and you go in there learning that. But then, as you know, and Erin, as the younger generation, you know, really discovering
as the younger generation.
She's a lot younger than I. So I'm definitely older than a lot of younger people. As I said.
Okay, all right.
As I said before.
Somewhere in the middle.
Except for me.
Probably older than you, but yeah, to bring like music back, and that was part of our is the humanization of the experience, you know. And you look at it, and we have in our film, and you look at archival photos like Ansel Adams and Dorothea Lange, and these amazing world-class iconic portrait photographers. Most of their portraits are of them smiling, being happy in the field, working in the field, and you're like, how did this doesn't tell the story that I want to tell. Yeah. Then you realize that they're human beings making the best of just an awful situation, you know.
And I think it's wild that there is, to a certain extent, an erasure of this history. Like there were so many camps that I didn't know of, you know, and I have friends who have, you know, generations of their parents or grandparents and great-grandparents who were in the internment camps. And I think it's wild. I don't know if you've seen The Terror, which is a very interesting take on internment camps. But also, what I found wild is these jazz bands that were in the internment camps, which I was like, that's a movie. That's me just thinking, like, what were some of those bands? I'm just, like, very curious, and, like, were they more, were there any all-female bands or anything like that?
That's a great question.
Oh, doubt it.
Yeah, doubt it. So every camp of the main sort of 10 camps had its own jazz band. And some of them, like the one at Heart Mountain, where we've spent a lot of time and where my family was incarcerated, was quite good. The George Igawa Orchestra was run by this guy, George Igawa, who had a band that toured all over and toured Japan, I think, before the war. So quite good. And then gradually, as people left camp or were drafted, it was, you know, filled in with high school students or younger kids who could sort of play the instruments and sort of read music. So a real range. But I think one story that I've heard from this woman, Joy Teraoka, who was a high school student and sang with this big band. She told me, you know, I'm from Los Angeles. I never would have sung in front of a big band, ever, if not for camp. And so she has some really wonderful memories of that experience, and she continued singing and still sings to this day. But that idea of, like, if not for camp, I wouldn't have had this experience. Yeah. But also, if not for camp, like, all of these other things would not have happened. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's an interesting take on things. Yeah. Yeah, I really am, like, now I'm going to do a deep dive into that just because I'm very curious about these, like, each camp had their own jazz band.
Yeah. And many bands.
And they'd go out, like, they were the best goddamn band in Wyoming, if you know what I mean, Erin. And that's a song that our friend wrote. But basically, you know, they'd be the best band in Wyoming, so they'd go and tour. Towns would hire them for their, like, dances and stuff like that. Like, they'd let them leave camp.
Oh,
you know. Yeah, so towards the end, towards the end, they were like, there's a lot of freedoms allowed because they were just a bunch of civilians. They started realizing.
Well, well. Speaking of that, did y'all want to play something?
Oh, is there a segue?
You have a guitar
Yeah,
here. You might as well play it.
This is from IKEA actually.
It's just an IKEA guitar.
Yeah, Aaron.
Do you want to go over there? Or?
They're gonna sing, and I'm just gonna sit here.
No, you're in the band now. Yeah.
I'm just sitting. Is there a tambourine back there?
Here we go.
Sorry, Tino.
Okay.
Yeah. So one. Hey.
I feel weird.
Our biggest fan.
I want to move over here so y'all can play.
So one thing we'd always do during this trip, it was really important to play music. We thought because it's the way to kind of connect with people and make it help ease into these really difficult conversations that we're having with other people and ourselves, honestly. So this is one of the songs. This is one of my songs that we'd always sing, and actually we sung in a bunch of different places, and it made the movie, Aaron.
It made the movie.
Yeah. So here you go. This is called Manchester. Wrote me a book, here the last page. Didn't even look, I think I locked it in a cage. Wrote a novel, 'cause everybody likes to read a novel. It started with a word, and it started pretty well, about a rare and fragile bird that I couldn't even smell on the table. I think I left it all on the table. I found the last page in the sky, cold and sweet like an apple.
The end, the end.
Found you, and now the story has its proper end. Oh, hello, will you be mine? Haven't felt this alive in a long time. Old streets are warm today. Hey, read the sign. Haven't felt this love in a long time. Sun is out, the sun will stay. All for the new day. The very last breath of the hero of our tale would leave you only to guess. Did he truly prevail in the sequel? Guess I'll have to write a sequel. My favorite part's when I die in your arms like a movie.
In the ending
A tragic. Now the story has its proper end. Oh, hello, will you be mine? Haven't felt this alive in a long time. Old streets are warm today. Hey, read the sign. Haven't felt this love in a long time. The sun is up, the sun will stay. All for the new day. Will be mine. You'll be mine. Short in the room in my last time. On the streets are warm today. Read the sign. Stop. Haven't felt this love in a long time. It's been a long time. Thank you.
Good.
Aaron Aoyama, everybody.
Now take a seat. Oh my God, that was Butamus.
Butamus Maximus.
Butamus Maximus. I wanna. There's a microphone here. Please come up. We have about 10 minutes. If you have a question, does anyone have a question? Come on, don't be shy. I don't have any more questions. I don't want to keep talking. But no, does anyone have a question? Yeah. Could you use the microphone right there? Yeah.
Hi, Kay.
Oh, is that Lisa?
This is Elisa.
Oh, Lisa, one of our editors on the film is here.
yay!
Yeah. I'm sorry I missed your Dolly Parton movie. How was it?
That's
Was it
fine.
wonderful? Okay, good. It's so. Oh my God, so great.
Yeah, we haven't never met because we work remotely, so that.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, this is a moment.
Yeah, hey, Kay.
Hey, so good to see you.
We like reuniting people.
Yes.
Like
know.
Oprah.
Yeah, right.
So good to see you.
So good to see you too. So I just want to add one extra layer to your conversation. I'm Italian, but not, I moved to the United States 30 years ago, so I became American. So when I saw the footage that Kay shot, my take on this was also interesting because I never knew what happened to Japanese American, and it was a huge discovery for me. And I couldn't believe that people could be stripped of their properties in a country like United States that is so about private property. Not only that, but sent unjustly into these camps. And then, after the war, what actually happened, which was even more horrible in a way, the women were forced to marry with white men to really completely destroy the culture. It was a purposely thing. So it made me think a lot, because I thought, what is democracy? We think America is the big exporter of freedom and democracy, but here, what's happening in the middle of America, something horrific like that. And so when I was talking to Kay about this movie, I always thought, this is really should be like even almost like a bigger conversation. Like we, as a people of America, we have to be always very aware that democracy is something we push forward every day, that we can never rest. It's like, yes, we have a beautiful constitution. Yes, there is a lot of foundation for freedom in America, but there is so much that goes wrong every day. And the only way to change and sustain the constitution is for us to be very, very aware. And so I was also hoping that this movie doesn't just speaks to the Japanese community and the atrocity done to Japanese, but also speaks to all of us to always stay awake, to always push freedom of speech every day. Because the moment we rest, the moment we think, we assume it's done, it's when things go wrong. And so I'm hoping that this movie is also a testimony to that it's all our responsibility on a daily basis to stay awake. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Oh, Elisa Bonora.
Yes.
So, yeah, I hope you find that in the message. Elisa was really critical in helping us transform the movie into something that we were kind of stuck for a while, and then Elisa came in and really helped us to kind of activate some new messaging and things like that. And so I hope you. It's a little bit less political than you might think, but it has a lot of the same emotions that you brought. So
Yeah, and you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for the conversation. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to hopefully seeing the film this evening. Just kind of reflecting on myself being educated in the U.S. and growing up in what was ostensibly a very liberal area that was supposed to be teaching us about all these injustices that happened, and I never learned about the camps growing up, and I only learned about them a little bit later in life, and got a chance to actually visit one, and only literally a month or two ago learned about the Dorothea Lange photos that were buried, it seems like a lot of this history has really been actively suppressed and not told. And I'm wondering, what was that like, uncovering that and highlighting that and now kind of preserving it in a way? And what has that experience been like?
Yeah, thank you. I think, there has been a lot of great work since the 60s, 70s to really uncover this. And so Dorothea Lange, seminal photographer, she was kind of criticized for looking down, portraying the evacuation, the incarceration as negative by the government, because she's hired by the government. And Ansel Adams went in and was also criticized for elevating them, because he's showing them as he's portraying their humanity in it. And I think it also says a lot about the climate at the time. As far as many people who wanted the Japanese incarcerated and removed from the West Coast, there was a lot of people who cared. And so I think the government they hired these photographers to document, to make sure there was a lot of people who cared that we were not like exterminating them, you know. And I think finding like continuing the story in a new way. That's what we found hard, because there's a lot of exhibits, there's a lot of organizations that promote this history, but to kind of reinvigorate it in a way to the new generation, so that the story isn't lost, is something that was the biggest challenge, I think, to keep it interesting and new.
Yeah, and I think the process of uncovering. I was talking with a Japanese American elder the other day who found on the internet photographs of himself as a child that he'd never seen before. And I was asking him what that was like. And we were both sort of reflecting on, you know, I've learned a lot about my family through government records, which is not unique necessarily, but it's this very strange, unsettling experience of learning that who you think about your family as is not always how they were, or how they were thought of in the eyes of the US government or whatever. So I think a lot of the process of doing this uncovering is realizing that American history is not usually what we're taught. It's not a neat narrative, and these family stories, especially ones that are not easy to find, that we have to go out and work to find, are really important. And I think for all of us on Omoiyari, thinking about, you know, it's not just Japanese American history. We can talk about this through the specificity of Japanese American experience, but this is something that extends far beyond just our community. Most of us do not see ourselves reflected in the founding fathers or the presidents of the United States or whatever we learn in K through 12. And so thinking about how we approach these questions, all of us, whether it's from a Japanese American identity or not. And so thinking about then like the privilege that we have as Japanese Americans to tell these stories as a way to invite others to do this sort of work is really important, I think, and hopefully another powerful piece of Omoiyari as well.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I loved that question just because there's so much history that's buried that we don't know about. Like, I don't even recall learning about the internment camps, and I'm learning about a lot about my own culture that, you know, that I didn't know. It's like, oh, okay, we're fed this history bullshit. K through 12, that everything was great. Because America's great, right?
Yeah.
They made it great again. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with, like, you need, like, I was talking to somebody, and you need heroes and villains to kind of attach yourself to an epic story to get excited about something. And, you know, sometimes that's necessary. Like, look at how heroic they were. Look at how, you know, in the face of adversity, they did all these amazing things. But the reality is, you know, once you understand that, there's so much more nuance that is quite equally as interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think that this movie kind of just adds to this conversation of something like The Terror or Allegiance. I don't know if you're familiar with Allegiance. You're laughing. I'm thinking you have opinions about it, but that's okay.
She's a big fan.
But you know, but there is this thing. Is like, I think art or movies, music are just a way to kind of. It's always that hiding the pill in the dessert kind of thing. But also, I think a movie like this, while I was watching this, I was like, oh, this is definitely a movie that should be shown in schools. Or like, I don't like, it's also similar to my friend Jeff Yang and Phil Yu and Philip Wong, who created a book recently called Rise, about the history of Asian America from the 90s to now, and it's out. I don't work for them, but it's a good. Like, I was like, oh, this should be in schools or in libraries. So I really hope they push this to kind of, not only as entertainment, but as a learning tool, because I learned a lot. And now I'm going to try to pitch a movie about jazz musicians in internment camps. That's just wild. Starring Kay.
I love it.
You're going to go into acting now, kid.
I love that.
Want to make you famous. But are there any more questions or anything? Do we have one more?
We have two more.
We have two more? Oh, we have like 50 seconds, so just real quick, yeah.
First of all, your singing is really beautiful. I just
thank
want to say that. And also, I related a lot with not being able to speak like my grandparents' language. I think while I was growing up, I always felt very like not quite Asian, but not quite American or Westernized.
Join the club.
Especially when I was watching like Asian YouTubers get more popular, I was like, oh, I relate to that. But at the same time, I was born second, third generation overseas here. So I guess with these younger Asian Americans being born as second, third generation American, do you have any words of advice for reconnecting with our roots and our culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's never too late. So I think that's the thing, just learn the language, and they're so happy to always share and to connect. Yeah. Sure, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have asked for one final question because we're out of time. But yes, thank you, Kay. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you all for coming out to this. Also, Omoiyari.
Omoiyari.
I'm really butchering it.
It's okay.
Premieres tonight, 5:45 at or 5:45 at the at Zach Theater. Go see it. You will not be disappointed. Seriously. Thank you all for coming out.
Thanks, Dino.
Thanks, Dino.
Yay! South by Southwest.